weird always. Someone should invent an invisible mic, because I just think it would make things less weird to come up and use this. But anyway, welcome everyone. How's everyone doing today? Great. Awesome. Beautiful day in Tucson. And it's gorgeous to be able to be here in community with you all in Tucson, and just also for such an amazing initiative that we are hosting here at the Poetry Center. So my name is Diana Delgado, and I'm the literary director here at the Poetry Center, and I work very closely with Tyler Meyer, Paula Valenzuela, as well as Joe Watson to help coordinate the Art for Justice program, which also hosts Free Time, which you all are part of. Today we are here for a special celebration and reading of the contest and also the readings from the poetry and prose that was submitted on behalf of Resilience Today and Tomorrow 2021 Poetry and Prose Writing Challenge Reading. It's a lot. It's a tongue twister, Joe. I didn't realize we were making a tongue twister. But anyway, thank you for being here for such an amazing cause. I'm just really grateful that we are able not only to sort of focus on poetry here, which is about transformation and change, but also social change and transformation, which should go hand in hand, and which we are really, really leaning into at the Poetry Center. And I'm just grateful and also proud of being able to be part of this. I'm going to start off with a little bit about what is Art for Justice, because Art for Justice is not just the Free Time community, it's also some other initiatives that we began a long time ago, which I'm going to say a little bit about the history of that and talk a little bit about the initiative and a little bit about the future of the initiative. So Art for Justice, about the project. The University of Arizona Poetry Center's Art for Justice is a 3-year project that commissioned new work from leading writers in conversation with the crisis of mass incarceration in the United States. And some people, if you have not been able to take part in any of these readings, you can go to VOCA, which is our online archive, and we have Tongo Eisen Martin. We have Evie Shockley, Natalie Diaz, Patrick Roselle, Randall Horton, Dwayne Betts, Nicole Seeley, Hanif Abdurraqib, John Murillo, Patricia Smith, Raquel Salas Rivera, and also Vanessa Angelica Villarreal. And we actually even have a few more people in that, but just to give you an idea of the scope of the programming that we've been doing for the last 3 years. The initiative was created in order to confront racial inequalities within the criminal justice system and to promote social justice and change. The Poetry Center, though, has a long history of serving system-involved writers and has administered the Arizona Prison Writing Program led by writers Richard Shelton, Ken Lamberton, and Eric Toso for many years. Recently, we've also begun serving some writers in juvenile detention centers and poetry readings and visiting poets that I mentioned were poets that actually made some visits in the last 3 years to some of the juvenile detention centers. And one other part of that is the Free Time Writing the Community program, which Joe basically started up. And I think it was a little bit before I arrived, but he worked with Tyler to kind of create this amazing model of building this community of writers who could then work and mentor incarcerated writers. But also, not only that, but to also just sort of create a model for change outside of even yourself, right? It's like this thing where it's just what is that, a stone in the pond, and it's like this ripple effect where it just has this outward effect. And I think that that's something that Joe has done a really amazing job with, of just creating an even bigger community that we have here with us. We are hoping in the next few years to continue to work closely with Joe in creating just more opportunities in the community. And we are also working on, in the Art for Justice initiative, to create an anthology of all the writers that have contributed to by creating new work. So that's something that will be upcoming, and hopefully you all will be able to be here with us for that reading. One other thing before I invite Joe up to talk more specifically about his amazing program is just a reminder that Thursday, December 2nd, Jericho Brown will be part of the reading and lecture series. So if you can't make it, it's going to be live streamed. And if not, we will be here on December 2nd for our next reading. And I hope to see all of you there. Thank you for your time. I'm now going to hand it over to Joe Watson.
Thanks, Diana. I'm Joe Watson. I'm the founder and organizer of the workshop Free Time, Building Community for Incarcerated Writers. And I'm the coordinator of our writing challenge and this reading, which were born out of the workshop. For more than 3 years now, scores of writers and other artists here in Tucson, across Arizona, and from all over the country, thanks to Zoom, since the beginning of the pandemic, have joined this workshop to support people in prison who write. One Saturday every month, typically the last, we gather to discuss notable writing about the criminal justice system, by people who are formerly incarcerated or somehow directly impacted. We share work from our friends on the inside and collectively provide feedback and guidance. And we talk about ways that people in Pima County, in Arizona, and across the country are reimagining how public safety can be achieved and how they're reforming the system. The workshop is free to the public, thanks to the support of the Poetry Center and the Art for Justice Fund, and we've collaborated with PEN America to reach thousands of writers in prisons across the country. And you, all of you here who aren't already part of the workshop, can join us anytime. We need you. Because though our volunteers, our friends on the outside, as I call them, are extraordinarily dedicated to the folks inside who we correspond with, there are simply so many writers in prison who we haven't been able to serve. So please, if you have the capacity, join us anytime. The point of the workshop is to provide a bridge to people inside prisons to the world outside, to help them have their voices heard. To remind them that they matter. This reading is proof yet again of that. We asked writers in prison, how do you manifest resilience inside? How do you get through it all? How do you muster the inspiration, motivation, the hope on a daily basis to go on? Because, man, out here we're having a really hard time not being able to go to Elcon to see the latest Marvel movie. And so, we're having a hard time mustering, it seems like, that resilience. It's rough. Seriously, we had about 200 submissions this year for our writing challenge, which is amazing for our little group in just its second year during a pandemic. It's three times as many submissions as we received in 2020. Our volunteers conducted a blind judging of the entries in the first round, and then we sent the finalists to our 3 judges in poetry, short fiction, and nonfiction. This year we had Randall Horton, an award-winning poet and memoirist of books including number 289, 128, and Hook, judging our poetry finalists. We were so fortunate to have Curtis Dawkins, the author of the critically acclaimed book of short stories, The Green Bar Hotel, to judge our short fiction finalists. And Piper Kerman, the author of the best-selling and iconic memoir turned Netflix series Orange is the New Black, judged our nonfiction finalists. Randall and Piper are both formerly incarcerated, and Curtis is currently serving a life sentence in Michigan state prisons. We are incredibly grateful to all of them. The winners of the challenge are going to be published on the Poetry Center website beginning on December 1st with the honorable mentions. On December 8th, we'll publish the nonfiction writers. A week later, on December 15th, we'll publish the fiction winners. And on December 22nd, the poetry winners will be published. Additionally, winners will receive cash awards. Thanks again, to the Poetry Center and to the Art for Justice Fund. I also have to give thanks to the Free Time Writing Challenge Committee. These are volunteers in our workshop. Gordon Beggs, Jeannie Coliani, Nancy Mellon. They could not be with us today, but they're definitely here with us in spirit. David Van Houten and Katie Zale also. This would not be possible without you guys. These folks really did the bulk of the work to make this happen. I also want to thank Ada McCartney, who not only helped curate this reading, but designed the flyer that went out to thousands of writers in prison across the country. And she kept me sane the past several weeks trying to get this challenge and this reading finished. And really importantly, I have to thank the Poetry Center's Diana Delgado, Paula Valenzuela, Sarah Jemsky, and Tyler Meyer for all their support and help. So the writers that you're about to hear from submitted this work because they are desperate for their voices to be heard and their words to be read. Hear them and see them. Let's get to sharing this incredible art. Please welcome my friend Ada McCartney.
Hello, my name is Ada McCartney. I've been involved with the Free Time Writers Workshop for just over a year now. I'm also directly impacted. Have been directly impacted. I will be reading a poem today by Mr. Yu Masaki. He's writing in his third language from a federal facility in Texas, serving life without parole. Poetry is his best structure. And Yu Masaki also makes intricate pencil sketches that are very floral. He experiments with different poetic forms. Randall Horton, judge of the poetry finalists, has this to say about his entry. I'm impressed by the pacing of this poem and the visual experience that accompanies the language that is trying to provide a first-hand experience. A report from the inside, as the Pulitzer Prize-winning Gwendolyn Brooks puts it. Is this better? Thank you. All right. Let me read that bio again because it's worth hearing. Yu Masaki is writing in his third language from a federal facility in Texas, serving life without parole. Poetry is his best structure, and he also makes intricate pencil sketches and experiments with different poetic forms. Randall Horton has this to say about his entry. I'm impressed with the pacing of the poem and the visual experience that accompanies language that is trying to provide first-hand experience, a report from the inside, as Pulitzer Prize-winning Gwendolyn Brooks puts it. I write. The time is breakfast, and a guard calls out. I wake up hearing keys clank. A key unlocks the door, cracks open. What a heavy sound. I must be ready by then, or I lose my chow. Well, another day, another tray. The guard slams the door behind me. The day room can be another loud place. I am soft-spoken, and the intercom is too loud, and I must pause between my words. It would say, somebody wall. My unit is under remodeling. The noise reminds my cellie of cows. The drilling may go away on weekends, but the cows. The noises spend the days in my eardrums. Peace comes around sunset. But my cellie flushes the toilet in my sleep. Then I hear the siren of the alarm without fire. What I love is the silent air of the blowing vent. I write and write and write. Next up, please welcome Deborah North.
Hello, and thank you to Joe for inviting me here today to honor these words. My name is Deborah North, native of Arizona, spent a quarter of a century working as a quality engineer and project manager in the Silicon Valley. If any of you have ever used a smartphone, you've used the stuff I worked on. We retired, moved back to Arizona, my husband of 30-something years and I, to Arizona to manage elderly, aging family. And I am directly impacted by the Arizona state system, prison system. My husband has just returned to his family in July, so we're happy to welcome him home. I'm going to be reading first up a piece by a gentleman named Jack Copeman. Jack writes about himself. Jack S. Copeman writes fiction, poetry, and essays from his cramped cinder block box in Michigan. He started writing to annoy the MDOC some time ago and has had varied success at it. Published in print and digitally, it gives him great satisfaction to share 30 years of grief and anguish with those who love reading tripe and lurid tales. That's where all the bananas come from. Next year will be his last pressing a bunk for the state. And Curtis Dawkins, who judged the fiction finalists, wrote this about Jack's entry. A story that takes the truth of how cantankerous old-timers, I'm pretty sure that's why Joe picked me to read this, as a cantankerous old-timer, end up a step further to a Kafkaesque extreme. Full of great details, fluid and believable dialogue with a humorous yet accurate twist, it is also a gentle critique on how to listen before speaking. This writer not only pays attention to the system and those around him, he also has a rare talent for turning the watching into words, an impressive feat. I will vouch for that. This is great. Snapping Turtle Jack. If you didn't already know this, here's a quick axiom to digest. Live in a toxic environment, such as a prison, long enough, and slowly but certainly the place turns you hard, ugly, miserably greenish yellow, and sharp around the edges, inside and out, converting once healthy human cells and basic ideals and values into a vile biological abomination fit only for tracking and release into a putrid swamp. Here is the story of one such snapper having approached the end of his 30 to 50 years indeterminate sentence and what he's like now after so many decades sitting on the bottom. Enjoy. A parole board interview. This is a violation of due process. My constitutional rights are being trampled, and I see the way you're looking at me. This is your fault. I'm a byproduct of systematic mass incarceration and human rights abuse, yelled the unrestrained prisoner, currently in the process of being subdued. Stop resisting, damn it. Put your flippers behind your back now, commanded the burly corrections officer as he struggled to gain control of the considerable-sized preptile, the official term for morphed prisoners dramatically altered by prison. Mr. Jackson, calm down, get control of yourself, quick. Splash him with pond water. That usually helps, said the chairman of the board, pointing toward a 5-gallon bucket filled with stagnant brown water and duckweed. While the other members either cringed behind him or leapt for the exit. Thinking with their feet and getting out of harm's way was always a good plan when employed in the violent realm of corrections. Leaving the flunkies behind to deal with the mess was true for any mindless hierarchical organization, the department fully embracing this elitist view. First, the court appoints the most incompetent motherfucker ever to misrepresent me, thereby ensuring that I get duly sentenced outside of my guidelines range. Then I'm warehoused behind that filthy gray wall at Michigan Reformatory, a place filled with cockroaches, rats, and illiterate sociopaths all strung out on psych meds. Finally, I survive all that, and the great COVID exposure program too, only to make it here. In front of you, to learn that I don't have a liberty interest to be released on my minimum out date? That's fucking preposterous. Still struggling with the guards trying to pin him down, a task nigh impossible for a creature able to withdraw his limbs into a hardened carapace, as more guards came scrambling into the room, thereby getting drenched in the melee of trained judo and buckets of tepid swamp juice being flung. Ah, the fucker's biting me. Get him off. Oh shit, help. Shoot him, screamed a terrified officer. Tasers don't work on any of them with 20 plus years, answered another. Quick, grab that pry bar. The situation was devolving as rapidly as the convict, more turtle than anything else at this point. Jack began to power crawl toward the chairman with no less than 3 guards clinging to his hardened back, like leeches. The poor officers would later develop PTSD and a newfound appreciation for Capitol cops after this experience. Still crawling, but spitting out the gashed and gushing arm, I endured all that your system has done to me. All my hair falling out, nails growing exponential, my chin disappearing into my throat, which then lengthened and stretched beyond all normal limits to resemble something comparable to a tailpipe. Not to mention that I've left the upright race and gone backward on the evolutionary chart. I'm a veteran, for fuck's sake. Is this how America treats its vets? Is this acceptable to you? Mr. Jackson, are you ready to hear the rest of what I was trying to say? Speaking in calm and soothing tones to the giant creature, fascinated by the sheer size and the beady eyes of such a primordial beast, as the stinky water began to have an observable effect. Stopping? Okay, what is it? I said that you don't have a liberty interest to be released on parole upon reaching your earliest release date. It is, in fact, law upon which the board holds discretion until expiration of your entire sentence, which simply means we can hold you until serving your maximum, if warranted to do so, save for recalcitrant behavior resulting in misconducts. This would prompt an adverse decision. Do you understand? Yes, the fog of my rage beginning to clear as rays of insight begin to shine through the haze. Good. Up to this juncture, your record is decent. Having earned a degree, worked and maintained institutional jobs, stayed out of trouble. Now looking at Jack's open beak of a mouth, the jaw hinged low like an elevator headed for the ground floor. The chairman continued, that with further demonstration of model behavior, we were going to recommend a pending release in 30 days. No shit, Jack muttered, astounded, about to collapse. Absolutely true. And with that, the chairman picked up the prisoner's commitment file, turned and walked straight out the door. Which is the problem with being trapped in hard things. Situations, lives, cells, shells, heads, etc. Being that you should always wait until it's your turn to speak, listening intently in the meanwhile, then formulating an appropriate response based on the facts and not feelings, something many prisoners fail to grasp. And next up is Katie Zale with The Prison Tree.
Hi. Yeah, I'm Katie Sarah Zale, and I've been with Free Time, I think it's going on 2 years. I'm directly impacted from the prison system. And I had the pleasure of reading all the nonfiction in poetry. And I have to say I was transformed. I got such insight into what it's like, the prison experience. And also, I think the transformation was mostly feeling the humanity of the people that are in prison. And enough said there. I'm reading a poem by Brandy Gettle, I believe. She is currently incarcerated in the Arizona Department of Corrections. She works as a training specialist for Televerde and is an advocate for criminal justice reform. Her poem, The Prison Tree, has been published in the GCHH newsletter and is shared in programs offered throughout Perryville Prison. Her belief is one person can make a difference. Randall Horton, the judge of our poetry finalists, had this to say about Brandy's poem. What I appreciate most about the poem is how the poet is able to imagine outside of that which confines, borders, and excludes human beings from the American experiment. The insight in this poem comes from deep reflection and experience that cannot be duplicated, and it resonates throughout the poem. The Prison Tree. If you hang from the prison tree, you are orange. According to the world, for all intents and purposes, you are an orange. But not all oranges are the same. They are all different. Different shapes, different sizes, and on the inside, each one is unique, original, and individual. Some oranges blossomed here and matured here. This is all they know. While others were grafted, brought to this foreign tree from somewhere else, completely out of their element, but here, just the same. They are now an orange hanging from the prison tree. Some, not accepting their new place in this world, become bitter, leaving a nasty taste in your mouth. Some begin to rot from the inside out, so when they do finally fall from the tree, they are no longer good and continue to rot. While others adapt, making the best out of this new tree. Accepting the fact that the universe is unfolding just as it should. Even though it is not where they started or where they want to be, they make the best out of it. They grow, they strive. They take in the strength and knowledge provided by this new experience and from the fruits around them. And when new oranges blossom or are grafted, they help them strive and grow, providing love and courage to those who unfortunately followed the same path and are now hanging from this prison tree. Then the time will come when you are released from the branches that confine you. No longer will the leaves hide you. And hopefully, just hopefully, the tree changed you. It made you better, not bitter. You learned to love and laugh in spite of your circumstances. You will now live each day to the fullest, embracing the present. Let's show the world that the tree does not define the fruit. We are more than just orange. And next, please, Tim Schaffner. There's Tim.
Hello. Thank you all for being here. My name is Tim Schaffner. I've been a volunteer with the Free Time Workshop since fall of 2019, and I'm going to be reading a fiction work titled Facebook Post by Wayne Snitsky. Wayne Snitsky is a lover of words from Northeast Ohio. He has been fascinated with all the different things you can create with words since he was just a wee lad. He has been writing seriously for several years and has been published a few times in places such as the Marshall Project, prisonwriters.com, and Iron City Magazine. Wayne is serving a life sentence in the Marion Correctional Institution in Ohio. Curtis Dawkins, the judge of our fiction finalists, said this about Wayne's piece. The subject, communicating with those outside of prison, might be the perfect carceral metaphor for our times. Beautifully written and sadly profound, Facebook post explores a loss no prisoner ever expects, the slow fading away of the world outside the walls. Like words sent in a bottle, the message transcends its world, as evidenced by a sentence from the story. Please read my words, because when you do, I am seen again. Facebook post. I found this message tied to a balloon. Anybody know whose this is? If human eyes are reading this, I might just believe in miracles again. I attached this note to a balloon and let it fly away. Let me explain why someone reading this might just count it as a miracle. The person that is writing this has been sitting in prison for over 20 years. Every single time I have placed a letter in the outgoing mail, I get the sense that I am essentially dropping a message in a bottle into the sea. I guess that is just the nature of life. As the years sitting in a cell wore on, more and more friends faded away. I guess that is just the nature of life. Plus, I know being friends with someone in prison is extra taxing. Few relationships anywhere last a lifetime. But it is not lost on me that every single friendship of mine that has ended all ended the same way, with me sending a letter that never gets a response. Maybe that's just part of the punishment for my crime. I read somewhere that only a small percentage of letters tossed into the sea are ever recovered, but some are found many decades after they were given to the ocean. That could mean that most letters are still floating around out there, waiting to come ashore. The reality, though, is that those words scribbled on a piece of paper, a time capsule of a moment in someone's life, met their fate at the bottom of the ocean or smashed against a rocky shore. But maybe, just maybe, there is still a chance for that paper to be found and the writer's shaky script to see sunlight again. A message in a bottle is often sent just to learn the science behind currents. Where will this bottle end up? But every bottle also has the message, see me, I exist. I wrote this message on this day. Please read my words, because when you do, I'm seen again. Even though so few messages are ever found, I believe it is still worth sending them. I have a family member with whom I have very little contact, but every so often, they turn back up in my life. We end up exchanging a few letters. The first one I receive picks up the conversation where the last one ended months or years earlier, as if no time had elapsed. But inevitably, I send a letter and get no response, at least not for quite some time. This is our pattern. Which brings me to this letter. All this thinking I have done over the years about messages in bottles, I knew I'd never get the chance to actually send one. My cell is many miles from any serious body of water, but the fates smiled on me, and I got my chance, sorta. My prison held a My Child and I Day event with balloons. So I got my hands on one on the black market. This can be my bottle. Just quickly writing this note before I give it to the sky gives me hope that maybe, just maybe, All those last letters I have sent over the decades may still be floating around out there, to be found someday in the bottom of some drawer or box in the basement. That maybe, just maybe, my shaky script will see the light again and an old friendship can be rekindled. If these words are ever read again, maybe I can be more than the worst thing I ever did. Maybe my life can find a greater meaning than my crime. If that day ever comes, I'll still be sitting here, waiting for a response. Wayne Snitsky attached this note to a balloon in Marion, Ohio, and gave it to the wind on September 15th, 2019. Next, I'm pleased and honored to introduce or reintroduce Joe Watson. Thank you.
Unfortunately, we didn't get everyone's biography before the reading today. I'm sorry to say. This next piece is called The Remedy for My Freedom by Saul Gonzalez. Randall Horton, the judge of our poetry finalists, had this to say about Saul's entry. I was struck and captivated with this lyrical treatise that operates at once as a nod ode to hip-hop and the endless possibility of poetry. The structure of the poem operates between freedom and restraint, but in a way that creates a third space through internal rhyme that's sick. And that's a good thing, just to let you guys know. Okay. Okay. The remedy for my freedom. The remedy for my freedom involves the mixing and matching of words and lines constructed by architectural designs of rhymes, opening the doors and windows in a disturbed yet influential mind that shines, illuminating the darkest corners of the past and the present times. See, where I'm from, we use the pen to set us free. But the opposition, and I quote, they use it to lock us up and throw away the key. We use the pen to exercise our creativity. They use the pen to deprive us of our simple, bare necessities. We use the pen to write letters to our family. They use the pen to make sure our loved ones cannot be seen. The pen can ultimately be like a mighty sword, or it can be the longest and hardest pain that you've ever endured. The remedy for my freedom is found in the ink that's inside of the pen. And when it's used to express thought and feeling, it reflects the light, just like a polished gem. The pen can be a friend to you, to me, and to many men, because it can open the gates, break the chains, and bring the bondage you're in to an end. Please welcome my friend David Van Houten.
Thank you. It's nice to see so many folks here today. I've been involved with the free time program, I think over 2 years now, but it's hard with COVID because it's kind of a disappearing year, so it might have been 3. I've also become a docent at the Poetry Center. And like Katie and some other folks here, many of us had an opportunity to read almost all of the 180 or so plus submissions. And I think it's kind of interesting to know, important to know that from all the folks who read the works, a constant theme that came through was, we want the people who submitted these to be heard. And so everybody received an acknowledgement letter that wasn't simply a form letter, but they also received a personal note at the bottom with either some feedback or some comment that said, keep writing, we really enjoyed this, it means so much to us. And I find that to be true for myself as well. When I get a letter from the people I write inside, I feel like they've given so much more to me than I've been able to provide to them. So I'm very happy to be part of this program. The person that I'm reading today is Michael Weiss, and he wrote an essay called The Necessity of Community. Excuse me. Yep, I do. Michael Weiss is a prisoner of the Texas Department of, I'm so sorry, Criminal Justice. He has been incarcerated for 12 years thus far for a 30-year prison sentence and will be eligible for parole in February 2024. Dig this. During his incarceration, Michael has earned an associate's degree in both business and horticulture. He will graduate this year with a bachelor's in interdisciplinary studies. He has been published in the Old Red Kimono magazine, the Willow Review, Exchange for Change, and the online poetry journal, the Ekphrastic Review. His essay, Orwell Will Be Shocked, received an honorable mention in the 2020 Poetry and Prose Challenges for Writers in Prison from last year. Piper Kerman, who judged our nonfiction finalists, wrote this about Michael's submission. Every paragraph of The Necessity of Community is laced with vitality and creativity to make manifest the culture of learning that the author and his fellow travelers in prison have worked to establish. With skillful weaving of the personal, altruistic, and collective benefits of participation in a college community in prison, he makes the case for the untold brilliance that exists behind the walls of America's carceral archipelago. The necessity of community. Building community in prison is difficult as you'd think, but vastly more rewarding than you can imagine. Friendships forged in the hellfire of prison are durable to the extreme. I still get Christmas cards from a guy I did time with 10 years ago. I haven't seen him in over a decade. He lives 1,000 miles away, but every holiday season he writes. Community is such a common occurrence in nature, we have special words for these gatherings. A group of hedgehogs is a prickle. A group of jellyfish is a smack. And one of the most well-known groups in prison is a gang. These aren't the only groups on the inside, although movies tend to romanticize gangs. They are incredibly violent, racist, and tend toward self-destruction. These types of communities were never appealing to me. There are many other communities in prison, though. There are religious communities, fitness communities, and artist communities. The community I have been a part of for these past years is the college community. This community transcends the prison environment, reaching out into the free world. It was in academia that I found a home. The subculture of the college community I settled into was the literature and writing group. In many ways, my friends and I built this community from the ground up. And looking at it now, it's quite amazing that it exists at all. It still catches me off guard when a buddy shoots something like The Magus by John Fowles through the dorm bars and says, "Hey, tell me what you think of the light, dark themes in this." In our spare time, a group of us turn the rec yard into a forum for literary criticism. Nothing is off limits. And because we share all the books that we get in, we are fluent in many genres. We discuss the politics in Robert Heinlein's The Moon is a Harsh Mistress, the feminism of Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale, and the real-world consequence of imprisoning our own, mass incarceration, and a colorblind nation. We style ourselves the convict inklings and bounce ideas off each other. One of our members has learned to translate Japanese into English, and he has a passion for it I do not understand. Of course, he can't understand why I write about prison reform and mass incarceration, and so we are even. One of our commitments to the group is helping prisoners around us with reading and writing. An alarmingly large number of prisoners can barely do either. It started when a man somewhat sheepishly asked, "Can you read this letter to me?" It was from his 10-year-old daughter, who promised to wait to get married until he could walk her down the aisle. He was serving a life sentence, and the moistness in his eyes wasn't from the tear gas from down the run. 3 months later, he was sounding out his daughter's writing, his letters as shaky as hers, but he was writing her himself. It gave him hope. Writing was the spark lighting a million embers in his dark. There's a little selfishness in the altruism, though. I've learned I love teaching, particularly prisoners. This realization has given my life a new direction. I want to teach prisoners after I'm released from prison. And everything I do is geared toward this goal. I've even heard some university prison initiatives are hiring ex-convicts for this very purpose. As I lay in my rack at night, waiting for sleep to take me, I dream of this future. Should I start a nonprofit myself? How can I build this type of community in as many prisons as possible? What type of education do I need to reach these goals? Ironically, my dreams involve me being in prisons the rest of my life. A group of stars, a community, if you will, is called a cluster. When enough tiny pinpricks of starlight are gathered into one spot, they outshine any single star by far. Anyone who has seen the Milky Way stretch from horizon to horizon can testify to this. The cluster of my prison writing community is vastly brighter than any star group. It was born, continues to be reborn from a crucible of need. We write things we need to write. We talk about things we need to talk about. And for me, my need has turned into a want. Writing has set me free. You hear that? Writing has set me free. And I wish that kind of community for every prisoner. It's my pleasure now to introduce Manny Mejias.
Hello, everybody. I'll be reading for Zaki, right? Zakai. I know I was going to mess it up. Zakai Fanford, pronouns are he and him, is a driven activist, eloquent poet, and motivated artist for human rights. Zakai has been in prison for 35 consecutive years between California, Oklahoma, and Minnesota women's prisons. He is working on his MBA. In the interim, Barnes and Thurbrug Law Firm and the All Square Restaurant have sponsored his paralegal training. His work can be found in books Poetry Unbound, Yellow Medicine Review, The Little Red Book 2, and Pen America. Randall Horton, the judge of our poetry finalists, had this to say about Zakai's entry. In this poem, I was impressed by the metaphorical intent and the symbolism behind the bug, which of course challenges our notion of what freedom looks and feels like. There is also a cinematic element to the poem that brings the images to life, which in turn provides more context on the setting of this poem, which is multi-layered with meaning. The poem is entitled 2 cicadas. And it reads like this. Oversaturated with regret, forlorn man. I stand at my barred window. I hear the white noise of another cell. Guard informs, rule violation ensues. A bug crawls on my bars insignificantly, but seems unaware of its existence and dismal chance of survival. Guard tells him to calm down, threatens to spray harmful chemicals if he does not comply. Prisoner yelling, breaks his own belongings. It is his last bastion of being heard before temporary insanity. The bug is alone, but literally one of millions. Bugs have survived cold, heat, and hungry birds. Bugs hit the windshield every day, get swatted, never knowing the dangers of the day. Guard sprays control chemicals, armored team forces entry, thrashing prisoner douses guards with whatever is near. Prisoner is restrained, carried out like funeral corpse, taken to isolation, being squashed like a bug. The fortunate bug is hidden in plain sight, quietly hopeful. The reasons for existence is love. The bug will die trying to get home, camouflaged next to the bars. Thank you. It's my pleasure to introduce Zachary Stout.
Good afternoon. I am a dual graduate student at the U of A, pursuing a degree in law and public policy. I was recently admitted to an Ivy League computer science program degree that I will be completing after the dual masters, and I am formerly incarcerated. This poem is by Stephen Henderson. It's titled How Freedom Feels. Randall Horton had this to say. How freedom feels is bursting with a kaleidoscope of poetic images and senses in which the speaker is ultimately able to actualize freedom, which is a state of being more than a physical location. I'm struck by the heightened language that flows effortlessly throughout the poem. This is one of those poems that echoes long after reading those words strung together, as the poet Etheridge Knight would put it. How freedom feels. Arizona heat grips my sweat-clung chest. Prison swamp coolers offer no relief. Dust and debris coat the complex. Fine brown grit on chipped gray paint. Sun chars dirt to a wind-swept crust, clogs my lungs, chokes my sleep. Cicada churs buzzsaw through my brain. A beehive of plug-in fans recycles acrid air. The dusk light shifts. Pastels begin to bloom. Summer's first monsoon builds in Sonoran skies. Cumulus clouds collect, nod their huge horse heads, snort virga, churn dust as they gallop through the sand. Wind staccato drum rolls on reeling blue fan palms. Crackling silver forks flashbulb, sharp confines. Thunder, kettle drums, my chest. Rattles my ribs, blazons the release of liberating rain. The downpour counts out cadence on its march across the yard. Palo Verdes genuflect, agaves raise a hallelujah. Puddles conga in the cloudburst, Saoros surrender to the storm. The cleansing shower clears the grime from every dirt-clad path. I raise my weary head, catch raindrops in my mouth. Mixes in with salt and tears streaming down my burnt cheeks. The deluge sloughs away the stains once stuck to me. The noose of summer's scaffold loosens from my neck. I can breathe wide open as coolness caresses me. Inhale clean creosote, see colors leap to life. Tonight, I will sleep unbound in the merciful monsoon. Welcome sunlit dreams of freedom soon to come. And I have the pleasure of reintroducing Manny Mejias.
Awesome. I just realized I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Manny Mejias, and I work for the INVEST program for Pima County. I am formerly incarcerated, which makes me an expert by experience when it comes to reentry, so it's a pretty good job. I like it. I will next be reading a poem by Patrick Pentusco. Patrick Pentusco has been writing poetry and song lyrics for several years. He is currently incarcerated in Northern State Prison in New Jersey, where he is enrolled at Rutgers University pursuing his degree with Justice Studies through the New Jersey Scholarship and Transformative, Education in Prisons or STEP College initiative. He is scheduled to be released in 2026, at which time he plans to attend law school. Randall Horton, the judge of our poetry finalists, had this to say about Patrick's entry. In many ways, this poem is symbolic of the rhetorical existence on the inside. The poetic structure instigates a chilling effect of what the inside can feel like. But then, too, the language bounces against these confines and breaks free through a poetic interlude of remembrance. I am able to feel what it means to be human in this poet's shoes. Patrick Pentusco's poet. The poem is entitled, I've Been. I've been thrown against the wall. I've been locked up in a cage. I've been pushed past my limits, and I was full of blinding rage. I've been labeled narcissistic. I've been called a psychopath. I've been locked away for years, and I became a slave to my wrath. I've been beaten to a pulp. I've been told I'd never win. I've been kicked in the balls, and I've committed every sin. I've been tortured in the mind and been left alone to die. I've been treated like a beast, but they'll never see me cry. I've been looking for a chance. I've been searching all around. I've been accepted into STEP, and now I'm college bound. I've been cracking all the books. I've been reading every line. I've been a sponge for information, and now I use my mind. I've been the one who used the drugs. I've been the one who committed crime. I've been the one who did his time. Now the second chance is mine. Thank you. And now I would like to introduce Deborah North. Hey.
I have the great pleasure now of reading a piece by Elizabeth Hawes. Elizabeth Hawes is a poet, essayist, and playwright. Some of her most recent work can be seen at truthout.org, the Vera Institute of Justice, Harper's Bazaar Online. She has a play called Supernova that's on podcast at opendoorplayhouse.org. And she is a winner of 5 PEN America Awards. Elizabeth has been in prison for the last 13 years. Piper Kerman, who judged our nonfiction finalists, wrote this about Elizabeth's submission. With great economy and attention to detail, the author of Looking West illuminates her internal world in the face of the double isolation of incarceration during the pandemic. Absent the small pleasures derived from creating community in prison, she must draw upon a sense of purpose, which is elusive to many both inside and outside of jailhouse walls. Looking West offers up the life of the mind and the author's resolve to be in the world despite exile. Looking West. My room is on lower A. My view is at ground level, overlooking dying hostas, brown and cracked, spindly milkweeds covered in hornets, and small thistles, green with lavender blooms. Beyond these plants is a short brick retaining wall of brown pavers and a green metal dumpster. If I look past the hornets and the trash, there is a sidewalk that leads to a courtyard. My window faces west, the direction of the unknown, of going within, and of dreams. I get poor reception on my radio in the room. When I listen to the Twins game, it is frequently full of static. And yes, we've had a horrible season. We are in last place. Our pitchers give up home runs in the 8th inning, and our batters can't buy a home run after we load up the bases. We have been injured all season, and we just traded away our best hitter, Nelson Cruz, to Tampa Bay, and our best pitcher, Jose Barrios, to the Blue Jays. Yet baseball still comforts me. The sound of the game sounds like home. It is one of few things that normalizes my summer. Surviving is all about finding what makes us whole. There are few pleasures in prison. For many, the wholeness is in rebuilding shattered relationships. For some, it is God. For others, it's music or the gym or being on the phone as much as possible. The pandemic slammed the door on the small privileges we did have. This past year, I saw many people I thought of as grounded and confident, cry. They had a hard time with the increased isolation, 23 hours alone in their cell all summer, not being able to walk outside for months, no activities, no religious services, and not being able to socialize with any friends broke many people. The isolation did not break me. I did not focus on what I could not do. I was productive this past year because I made a list of things to do every day, and I did them. I know that sounds simplistic, but it worked. I am a big believer in Viktor Frankl's logotherapy. It is a philosophy of finding purpose, and that the search for meaning is the primary motivation of a person's life. I have a lot of dreams, but something that is important to me that I can work on right now is writing. I want to be a good writer. To make this happen, I read classic and impactful books. I pay close attention to the first and last sentence of every chapter, the length of sentences, and the style of the writer. I journal every day. This past year, I wrote on the pandemic and its effect upon the people who live in prison. I documented the constant quarantines, lack of mental health care, and the spiraling psyches. By looking at the virus through a lens of statistics, the pandemic is bad. By focusing on the pandemic through stories, it is heartbreaking. Stories give a more complete picture. This past year, I often prayed for our country and the world. I also wrote dozens of poems. I read a book called Sylvia Plath's Letters, Volume 2, or something similar, that contained 700 plus pages of letters she wrote during the last years of her life. She was so ambitious, frequently having 20 plus poems circulating simultaneously to different publishers. I think she would have loved to live in this era when publishing venues are more accessible. Prison cuts us off from accessibility. We have no internet and are not able to send the often requested self-addressed stamped envelope when we send out our work. We can't buy stamps here. The computer lab has been closed since March 2020. It has only been available for GED classes since September 2021. But from my cell, I walk with protesters. I advocate for the children of the incarcerated, for women in segregation, and the importance of prison parenting programs in my essays. I connect with the world by watching PBS and NPR. I read Patti Smith, Best New York Poet / Rock Star, Lucia Berlin, Best American Short Story Writer, and Catherine Nurnberger, Best Feminist Eco-Poet. And no matter what happens around me, I still control what goes on in my head. I refuse to be bogged down by hornets and trash outside my window. I see monarchs floating in the breeze. And I'm very, very proud to introduce Joe.
Every time I hear a siren, these voices keep drowning them out. I also wanted to mention, besides the workshop, I'm also employed by the Pima County Attorney's Office, and I'm really happy and proud that some of my colleagues are here today. And I am also formerly incarcerated. To end our reading today, I'm going to be reading a poem by Sonia Weidenfelder. Sonia is a musician, composer, writer, and artist. More importantly, she is a daughter, sister, mother, and friend. She is currently in Oklahoma, serving a sentence of life with the possibility of parole. Randall Horton, the judge of our poetry finalists, had this to say about Sonia's entry. The poetic line, "I survived my own annihilation," in the poem, "This is Victory," will not leave my memory anytime soon. The way the poem builds to this revelation makes me question the idea of victory as much as I do freedom. Chilling. This is Victory by Sonia Weidenfelder. What if this is victory? What if this is how it looks to win? This, the unendurable, the unbearable, get me out of this place, get me out of my skin. I can't stand it a second longer. What if it beats the alternative? Watching your dreams fall from the sky one by one like overripe fruit, crushed on impact, lost forever. What if this is just how it is now? What if things stay like this forever? Is it enough? Yes. No. I'm not lost, only hidden. I'm not lost, only hidden. Tucked away in an obscure crevice, behind closed doors, in this public-private concrete sanctuary, where I can grow in tranquility, vibrant and verdant and rich. I survived my own annihilation. Even as I mourn my lost dreams, new buds are forming on the branches, growing heavy and juicy and golden and velvet. And in time, I will pluck and taste every last one. They say the best revenge is a life well lived. This is not enough. This is more than I ever dreamed. This is victory.
Thank you, Joe, and to everyone for your attention, your compassion, and your generosity. I have a few quick things before we end. I forgot a key person who is part of all of these things that we do at the Poetry Center, including this particular initiative, and that's Sarah Jemsky, who is there helping us with the live stream. And so Sarah Jemsky, thank you so much for all that you do. And I'm thankful for everyone's sort of presence and support, but one of the things is if there's interest in sort of contributing further, just to help us create a more sustainable and expansive free time writing community, please see Tyler Meyer or myself. I'm Diana Delgado. I will be here after with my cards. You can email me. We can meet for coffee and talk more about that. But if you ever want to contribute, we are focusing on year 3, so we're looking forward to next year's contest, but we could always, we can always use supporters and contributors to our programming. So thank you for that. And then the last thing is I'll see you on December 2nd here for the Jericho Brown reading. Thank you so much. Be well.